Clarice Johnson began her day like so many before, deeply engrossed in the familiar routines of the high-end fashion boutique where she had excelled as a manager for more than 5 years. This sophisticated store, nestled in an affluent corner of Washington, D.C., attracted discerning and often demanding clientele. Clarice's unwavering dedication and impeccable professionalism had not only earned her the respect of her colleagues, but also the unwavering loyalty of their elite customers. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. That particular morning, the boutique was buzzing with activity. Clarice was in the back room, meticulously organizing the latest luxurious collection that had just been delivered when the unmistakable sound of a heated confrontation reached her ears. Instantly alert, she hurried to the front of the store. There, she was confronted with a distressing scene. The influential socialite, Miranda Collins, was fiercely accusing a young employee of theft. Clarice, with her characteristic grace and composure, stepped in to address the escalating situation. "What appears to be the issue, Mrs. Collins?" she inquired gently, aiming to diffuse the tension. Miranda, with a look of haughty disdain, pointed an accusatory finger at the trembling employee. "I saw this girl slip a piece of clothing into her bag," Miranda declared, her voice dripping with indignation. The accusation hung heavily in the air, charged with the potential to shatter reputations and livelihoods. Clarice turned her gaze to the young employee, who was vigorously shaking her head, tears welling up in her eyes as she denied the accusation. "Mrs. Collins, I'm certain this is just a misunderstanding. Let's review the security footage to clear things up," Clarice suggested, her voice calm but firm. Miranda, however, was far from placated. She fixed Clarice with a steely glare, her tone growing icier. "This isn't the first time I've noticed suspicious activities in this store, and as the manager, you bear the responsibility," she declared, crossing her arms in defiance. Before Clarice could formulate a response, 2 security guards, alerted by the commotion, arrived on the scene. Miranda then did something completely unexpected. She pointed an accusatory finger directly at Clarice. "Maybe you're the thief here," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You people always protect each other, don't you?" Clarice felt the weight of the accusation hit her like a punch to the gut. Miranda's words not only unjustly implicated her, but were also tainted with blatant prejudice. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The bustling store grew eerily silent as all eyes turned toward the dramatic confrontation. "This is ridiculous," Clarice responded, struggling to maintain her composure amidst the storm of emotions. "We need to handle this professionally. Please follow me to the security room so we can review the footage and get to the bottom of this." The tension in the air was palpable as Clarice led the way, every step heavy with the implications of the accusations. The once vibrant and lively store now felt like a stage set for a high-stakes drama, with everyone watching and waiting for the truth to unfold. Nevertheless, Miranda insisted on calling the police immediately. Reluctantly, Clarice agreed, placing her faith in the hope that the truth would eventually come to light. As they waited, the atmosphere in the store grew increasingly tense, filled with hushed whispers and mistrustful glances directed toward Clarice. When the police arrived, the situation darkened further. Without any concrete evidence, and solely relying on Miranda's accusations, Clarice was taken into custody on suspicion of theft. The cold metal of the handcuffs around her wrists was a painful reminder of the profound injustice, one she knew was steeped in prejudice. On the ride to the police station, Clarice kept her head high, her mind already strategizing how to prove her innocence. She knew she had a powerful ally in her husband, Dr. Ethan Johnson, but chose not to mention him, hoping that her innocence would be evident without needing to invoke his name. At the station, she was met with an icy reception, treated with suspicion and disdain. The interrogation was brutal, with officers insinuating that she was part of a larger criminal scheme. Throughout, Clarice maintained her dignity, answering each question calmly and firmly, steadfastly denying any involvement in the alleged crimes. Every moment in the stark interrogation room felt like an eternity. The officers' relentless questions and the atmosphere of distrust were nearly suffocating. Despite the intensity of the situation, Clarice's resolve remained unshaken. She recounted her story with unwavering consistency, her voice steady, her gaze unflinching. She knew the odds were stacked against her, but she also knew that the truth was on her side. Her inner strength and unyielding belief in justice fueled her determination to see this ordeal through to its rightful end. The battle for her integrity had just begun, and Clarice was prepared to fight with every ounce of her being. Meanwhile, news of Clarice's arrest began to spread like wildfire. Journalists, always hungry for a sensational story, quickly seized on the narrative. A black woman unjustly accused of theft in an upscale store was the kind of scandal that captivated public attention. Ethan was attending a medical conference in New York when he got the devastating news. Without a moment's hesitation, he booked the first flight back to Washington, D.C. He knew he needed to stand by his wife's side, leveraging every ounce of his influence and resources to clear her name. At the police station, Clarice waited, a flicker of hope igniting within her. She knew Ethan was doing everything in his power to help her, and, more importantly, she knew she wasn't alone. Ethan arrived at the station with the determined air of a man who had faced and overcome great adversities. He was acutely aware of the biases that still plagued the American justice system. The thought of Clarice being led away in handcuffs, the news of the grave injustice she was enduring, filled him with a blend of righteous anger and an unyielding resolve to fight for the truth. Ethan's arrival at the station made an immediate impact. The officers recognized him instantly. Not only was he a renowned doctor, but he was also a respected public figure for his substantial contributions to medicine. He didn't need to raise his voice to ensure that Clarice was treated with the dignity she deserved. His mere presence, coupled with a few measured words, conveyed his authority. "I want to see my wife now," he stated calmly, yet with the commanding tone of someone accustomed to handling high-pressure situations. One of the officers, clearly intimidated, pointed towards the interrogation room where Clarice was being held. Ethan entered the room to find her seated, still handcuffed, but with her head held high and a defiant glint in her eyes. "Clarice, my love," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "I'm here. We'll get through this together." Clarice smiled at him, a smile brimming with unspoken emotions. Ethan knew she was strong and resilient, qualities he cherished deeply. "Ethan, they have nothing against me, except that woman's word," Clarice said firmly. "But this is about more than a false accusation. It's about the prejudice we face every day." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and truth of her words. He understood that their battle extended beyond this single accusation. It was a fight against an entire system that often failed to treat people fairly. Clarice's strength fueled Ethan's resolve. The room's tension was palpable, but so was their determination. Ethan knew that this fight wasn't just for Clarice, but for every individual who had ever faced injustice. He would channel all his knowledge, connections, and unwavering love for his wife to ensure that justice prevailed. The battle ahead was daunting, but together they were a force to be reckoned with. After a few minutes, one of Ethan's top lawyers arrived. Daniel Crawford was renowned in his field and celebrated for his prowess in handling challenging cases and his unwavering dedication to justice. He entered the room, greeted Clarice and Ethan, and immediately began delving into the specifics of the case. "Clarice, please walk me through exactly what happened in the store," Daniel requested, his tone calm and professional. Clarice recounted everything in detail: Miranda's sudden and baseless accusation, the complete lack of evidence, and the blatant prejudice that tainted the entire situation. Daniel listened intently, jotting down notes and formulating a defense strategy. "We'll secure the store's security camera recordings," Daniel stated, "and we'll need testimonies from witnesses who can vouch for your character and conduct at work." Ethan nodded, already strategizing on how to mobilize their extensive network of contacts. He knew they would need an overwhelming amount of evidence to combat the injustice they were facing. Meanwhile, the media continued to voraciously cover the case. Journalists swarmed outside the police station, eagerly awaiting any updates. Social media buzzed with polarized opinions. Some staunchly defended Clarice, while others condemned her based on ingrained biases. Ethan and Daniel stepped outside the station to address the press. Clarice watched from the window as her husband positioned himself in front of the cameras. "My wife is innocent," Ethan declared, his voice resolute and unwavering. "She is being unjustly accused based on prejudice and without a shred of evidence. I trust the justice system to rectify this situation, but I also trust in the truth, and the truth is that Clarice did not commit any crime." Journalists peppered him with questions, but Ethan maintained his composure, responding only to what was necessary. He understood that every word could sway public opinion and, by extension, Clarice's trial. Inside the station, Clarice felt a surge of hope. She knew Ethan was tirelessly working to support her, and most importantly, she knew she wasn't alone. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan, Daniel, and their legal team worked around the clock. They obtained the security recordings, only to discover that a crucial segment of the video was missing, seemingly deleted. This revelation intensified suspicions that someone was deliberately trying to frame Clarice. Ethan leveraged his network of contacts to apply pressure on the store's administration to cooperate fully. Despite the daunting challenges, Ethan's unwavering support and Daniel's relentless pursuit of justice fortified Clarice's resolve. The team gathered character witnesses and testimonies from loyal customers and colleagues who attested to Clarice's integrity and professionalism. The media frenzy continued, but so did the groundswell of public support for Clarice, fueled by the exposure of the systemic prejudices she was battling. As they prepared for the upcoming legal battle, Clarice, Ethan, and their team remained steadfast. The fight for justice was not just for Clarice, but for everyone who faced similar injustices. Each step taken, each piece of evidence uncovered, brought them closer to unveiling the truth and exposing the prejudices that had led to this moment. Together, they were a formidable force, determined to see justice prevail. Finally, a breakthrough came when one of the store employees, who empathized with Clarice, discreetly provided an additional copy of the video he had prudently saved. The recording indisputably demonstrated Clarice's innocence. Instead of committing theft, the footage showed her assisting another customer at the precise moment Miranda alleged she had seen the crime. Armed with this new evidence, Daniel meticulously prepared Clarice's defense. Furthermore, several colleagues and loyal customers eagerly volunteered to testify on her behalf, vouching for her impeccable character and integrity. Clarice's trial garnered significant attention. The courtroom overflowed with journalists, civil rights activists, and intrigued onlookers. Outside, protests erupted, with demonstrators clamoring for justice for Clarice and denouncing the racial prejudice at the heart of the accusations. The atmosphere was electric, with a mix of outrage and solidarity. On the day of the trial, Clarice walked into the courtroom flanked by Ethan and Daniel. She felt a mix of nerves and determination, resolute in her quest to prove her innocence. Ethan's hand in hers was a lifeline, conveying unwavering strength and support. His presence was a constant reminder that she was not facing this battle alone. As the trial commenced, the prosecution presented its case, relying heavily on Miranda's testimony. However, Daniel's cross-examination swiftly began to unravel the credibility of her claims. He meticulously highlighted inconsistencies and pointed out the lack of concrete evidence. When the defense presented the crucial video footage, the courtroom fell silent. The recording starkly contradicted Miranda's allegations, revealing the truth for all to see. Witness after witness took the stand, each one reinforcing Clarice's reputation for honesty and dedication. Colleagues spoke of her unwavering professionalism, and customers shared personal stories of her kindness and integrity. The courtroom atmosphere shifted noticeably as the weight of the evidence and testimonies mounted in Clarice's favor. Outside, the protests grew louder, with chants demanding justice echoing through the streets. The public outcry underscored the broader implications of Clarice's case, highlighting systemic issues of racial prejudice and the urgent need for reform. As the trial drew to a close, Daniel's closing argument was powerful and impassioned. He emphasized the importance of truth and justice, calling on the jury to see beyond the baseless accusations and recognize the prejudice that had fueled them. He urged them to deliver a verdict that would not only exonerate Clarice but also send a message against the deep-seated biases that had led to her wrongful accusation. The jury deliberated for what felt like an eternity. When they finally returned, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The verdict was read not guilty. Relief and joy washed over Clarice as the courtroom erupted in applause. Ethan embraced her, their shared strength and love evident in that moment of triumph. Outside, the crowd cheered as news of the verdict spread. Clarice and Ethan stepped out of the courthouse, greeted by a wave of support. Their ordeal had not only cleared Clarice's name, but also sparked a broader conversation about justice and equality. The fight for truth had been arduous, but together they had emerged victorious, embodying the resilience and courage needed to confront and overcome injustice. The prosecution laid out its case, relying solely on Miranda Collins' testimony, portraying her as a trustworthy and upright citizen who had witnessed a crime. When it was the defense's turn, Daniel Crawford stood with a confidence that filled the courtroom. He approached the jury with a composed demeanor, presenting the security footage and a series of character witnesses who knew Clarice well. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, his voice firm and unwavering, "what we witness here is a blatant miscarriage of justice, rooted deeply in prejudice. My client, Clarice Johnson, has been wrongfully accused without a shred of concrete evidence and subjected to treatment that is nothing short of abhorrent. The security footage unequivocally exonerates her, and these witnesses are here to testify to her unblemished character and professional integrity." The jury watched the security footage intently. The video clearly showed Clarice helping another customer at the precise time Miranda claimed the theft occurred. It was undeniable proof that dismantled the prosecution's case. The footage was followed by testimonies from colleagues and loyal customers who described Clarice as a dedicated, honest, and exemplary manager. Their words painted a stark contrast to the unfounded allegations. Miranda was then called to the witness stand. During cross-examination, Daniel's probing questions began to unravel her story. Her demeanor shifted from confident to visibly nervous. The once assertive socialite now stammered, her answers riddled with inconsistencies. Daniel highlighted these contradictions, meticulously dissecting her account. He brought to light possible personal biases and animosity Miranda held against Clarice due to her managerial position and racial prejudices. "Mrs. Collins," Daniel said, his tone sharp yet composed, "were you aware that your baseless accusation could irrevocably damage an innocent person's life? Did you contemplate the severe ramifications of your allegations?" Miranda squirmed under the scrutiny, her attempts to justify her actions crumbling. She failed to offer a solid explanation for her claims. The jury's reaction was palpable. Skepticism and disbelief were written on their faces. As the trial proceeded, it became increasingly evident that Miranda's accusations were steeped in prejudice and malice rather than truth. The trial spanned several days, each one more intense than the last. Clarice sat beside Daniel and Ethan every day, her composure a testament to her inner strength. Outside the courthouse, protests had formed. Civil rights activists and supporters rallied, holding signs demanding justice for Clarice and condemning the racial prejudice she faced. The case had become a focal point for discussions on racial bias and injustice, attracting widespread media attention. Social media buzzed with divided opinions, some defending Clarice passionately, while others, blinded by prejudice, condemned her without basis. The atmosphere inside the courtroom on the final day was thick with anticipation. The moment of the verdict arrived and a hush fell over the room as the judge asked the jury if they had reached a decision. The foreman stood, the tension almost tangible. "We have, Your Honor," he declared. "We find the defendant, Clarice Johnson, not guilty on all charges." The room erupted in a mix of gasps and applause. Relief and elation washed over Clarice as she absorbed the words that vindicated her. Tears welled up in her eyes as Ethan embraced her tightly, their shared strength and love glowing in this moment of triumph. Daniel shook hands with both Clarice and Ethan, his demeanor one of quiet satisfaction. He had not only defended his client, but had also struck a significant blow against the prejudice that had sought to condemn her. The courtroom scene was one of celebration and justice prevailing. Clarice's colleagues and supporters cheered, some wiping away tears of joy. This moment was a profound validation of Clarice's character and the truth they had all fought so hard to reveal. It marked the end of a harrowing chapter and the beginning of healing and justice. Outside, the gathered crowd, which had been following the trial closely, erupted in cheers as news of Clarice's exoneration spread. Supporters held signs aloft, chanting slogans for justice and equality. Journalists scrambled to capture the scene, documenting the emotional aftermath of the verdict. Clarice and Ethan stepped out of the courthouse, greeted by a throng of supporters who applauded and rallied behind them. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for headlines that would emphasize the triumph over injustice. As Clarice stood on the courthouse steps, looking out at the sea of faces, she felt a surge of gratitude and hope. This ordeal not only reaffirmed her faith in herself and Ethan, but also underscored the importance of standing up against injustice. Her fight had become a symbol of resilience and truth in the face of prejudice. Together, they had faced a formidable challenge and emerged victorious, their bond and resolve stronger than ever. Ethan, holding Clarice's hand, addressed the crowd and the press, reiterating their commitment to justice and equality. His voice was steady, filled with the determination of a man who had faced great adversities and triumphed. "Today, justice has prevailed," he began, his words echoing through the crowd. "Clarice was wrongfully accused, but through truth and perseverance we have proven her innocence. This case highlights the need for continued vigilance against prejudice in all its forms. We must all work together to ensure that justice is fair and equitable for everyone." The crowd responded with resounding applause, their cheers a testament to their support and shared values. As Ethan and Clarice made their way through the crowd, shaking hands and receiving heartfelt words of encouragement, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. This victory was not just theirs, but belonged to everyone who believed in fairness and justice. It was a powerful reminder that, despite the challenges, the fight against prejudice and injustice was a fight worth pursuing. A wave of relief and joy swept through the courtroom. Clarice hugged Ethan, tears of happiness streaming down her face. Daniel shook her hand, congratulating her on her strength and resilience. "You did it, Clarice," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Your courage made this possible." Outside the courtroom, journalists eagerly awaited the announcement. Ethan, with Clarice by his side, stepped up to the microphones. "Today, justice has prevailed," he declared, his voice filled with emotion. But this case highlights a much larger issue in our society. We need to continue fighting against prejudice and ensuring that everyone is treated equally under the law. Clarice, although exhausted, felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that her fight didn't end there. She would use her experience to advocate for justice and equality, determined to make a difference in the world. "I want to thank everyone who stood by me," she said, her voice steady. "This victory is not just mine. It belongs to all of us who believe in justice and equality." As they left the courthouse, hand in hand, Clarice and Ethan were surrounded by supporters. People cheered, applauded, and reached out to offer words of encouragement. Some held signs that read "Justice for Clarice" and "End Prejudice Now." Clarice felt a deep sense of connection to these strangers who had come to support her, knowing that her story had touched many lives. Reporters continued to ask questions as Clarice and Ethan made their way through the crowd. "Clarice, what's next for you?" one of them called out. Clarice paused, looking directly at the cameras. "I will continue to fight for justice," she said. "This experience has shown me how important it is to stand up against injustice. I want to use my voice to help others who may not have the same platform. We need to work together to create a society where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." Ethan squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with pride. "We're in this together," he said, "and we won't stop until real change happens." The media coverage of Clarice's case brought national attention to issues of racial prejudice and injustice. Civil rights organizations reached out to her, inviting her to speak at events and join their efforts. Clarice embraced these opportunities, sharing her story and advocating for systemic change. Her experience became a catalyst for a broader movement, inspiring others to come forward and share their own stories of injustice. In the following months, Clarice and Ethan worked tirelessly. They organized community meetings, participated in panel discussions, and lobbied for policy changes aimed at addressing racial bias in the justice system. Their dedication and passion resonated with many, galvanizing support from people of all backgrounds. Clarice's story continued to serve as an inspiration, a testament to the power of truth and the importance of standing up against injustice. Her journey from a wrongfully accused manager to a prominent advocate for justice and equality highlighted the impact that one person's courage and determination could have on the world. Through her efforts, Clarice not only cleared her name but also contributed to a growing movement for a fairer, more just society. As we come to the end of this powerful story, we must reflect on the lessons we've learned from Clarice's journey. Her courage and determination to stand up against injustice remind us of the importance of fighting for truth and equality, no matter the obstacles. What have you learned from Clarice's experience? How will you bring these lessons into your own life? We encourage you to share one thing you have learned and plan to practice below this video. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that inspire and drive positive change. Thank you for watching.